Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of Osoyoos Town Council, Tuesday, September the 7th at 2 o'clock in Council Chambers. The first item of business would be the adoption of the minutes, Committee of the Whole minutes from August the 16th, and regular open minutes from August the 16th for adoption. Councillor Ryan, Councillor Cronmiller, any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. No business arising. Under introduction of late items, because this meeting has the possibility to be recessed at 5 o'clock and reopened at the Sonora Center as part of the public hearing, I'm going to add some items onto the agenda. This would be the official community plan amendment bylaw number 1230.08, the zoning amendment bylaw number 1085.77, including application for density bonus, the phase development agreement authorization bylaw number 1272, the development permit DP 0907, and the subdivision application S1002. May I have a motion to adopt those onto the agenda, please? Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Chadsey, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? They are now part of the agenda. I'd also like to rearrange the agenda, and I'd like to have the bylaw portion of the meeting, which would be under H, bylaw H. I would like that to appear at the end of the meeting, following K, the reports. We would bring that in there. Need a resolution for that? Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Ryan, all in favor? Opposed? That has been adjusted. Moving on with the agenda under item E, delegations. We have Janice Johnson from the Regional District Okanagan, Similkameen, Air Quality Coordinator, going to talk to us about the draft smoke control bylaw. And this is very, very dear to our hearts. We're excited about where this is going to go. And, you know, it's always tough being a community that has a no-burn policy when we're surrounded by the regional district in which people are allowed to burn. So all steps we're making in that regard are welcome.
That's great. Thank you. Well, thanks for having me. So the RDOS draft smoke control bylaw, if we could go to the next slide, please. So just to give you some background, the board, RDOS board, asked staff to investigate a regional venting and burning bylaw, a ban burn barrels bylaw, ban unregulated outdoor boilers, address poor burning practices. So somehow they wanted these things addressed, and because of various jurisdictional issues, like within the Wildland Fire Act, the Provincial Wildland Fire Act, we could not have a regional venting and burning bylaw. That wording is getting clarified, and maybe that can change at a later date, but right now it can't. So what we came up with then is a smoke control regulation or a bylaw that does not regulate burning per se, but smoke, and we'll get into that. And so I'm here asking for municipal input, and it's been emailed out to the fire chiefs for input as well. So the proposed smoke control bylaw is to encourage responsible burning, to reduce smoke levels from open burning and from heating, to protect human health. We all know that smoke contains PM 2.5, which is a very small particulate matter that enters deepest into the lungs, as well as the latest science is telling us it goes into the bloodstream as well. So there are no safe levels of wood smoke. And this is to apply to all areas with local, municipal, and rural fire protection services. It's enforced by a bylaw officer, not the fire chiefs. It's to be used as an educational tool as well. There's a $10,000 annual budget, which works out to 31 cents per parcel tax property. Right now, we have a grant from Ministry of Environment for $15,000 to start this off. Once the Ministry of Forests Lands provides clarification, then in their Wildland Fire Act, then it can be applied to all areas in the RDOS. Now, we've done a lot of smoke reduction efforts thus far in about the last 5 years, a lot of education, presentations to various groups, ag groups, Better Breathing Club groups, municipalities. We've done a lot of programs, ag chipping, salvaging, reducing tipping fees. The RDOS landfills and the Summerland landfills have eliminated agricultural tree waste tipping fees, curbside pickup. The wood stove exchange program, we've exchanged so far in this year 70 count of old wood stoves and changed them out for more efficient wood stoves. So we have funding actually for another 80 counts, so that program is going to be extended. And it started up again September 1st, and we're going to continue the program until we use up those 80 rebates. So that applies to municipalities and rural areas. The Ag Plastic Recycling Program is another smoke reduction effort. That program started under the Air Quality Program because of the amount of plastics that were being burned out in the field. So we're happy to say that we are getting reports that they're no longer seeing this. So that's very exciting. We also have the Agricultural Best Management Practice Guide and video that's gone out, and I don't know if you've seen it or not. If you hadn't, I'll provide a copy. We also received $30,000 in funding to update those videos, which we will be doing, and updating the Best Management Practice Guide, and that funding money came from BC Agriculture Council. We also did a provincial conservation officer program, and that was again funded by the province. It was a 6-month program where conservation officers went door to door in the agriculture community, raising awareness about proper burning practices and the ag plastic program. So we know that poor burning practices are a result of burning wood that is too wet, burning compostable materials, leaves, grass, and manure, improper operation of wood heating units, installation of unregulated outdoor boilers. Unfortunately, the province has no regulations on outdoor boilers except for agriculture. So what's happening is we're starting to see more outdoor boilers come into communities. And of course, they emit very high levels of wood smoke. Selling outdated wood heating appliances, there is no provincial regulation against that. We're hoping that the wood stove regulation with the province will get updated to include that. Of course, dirt and wood waste piles, garbage burning and other waste, residential as well as commercial and farm. So the other thing that we've noticed is that the poor burning practices are worsened by good venting and smoke not dispersing. So with tree removal and land clearing, I'm just going to show you a few photos as demonstrating. If we can go to the next slide, please. So here's, I'm going to take you through different venting indexes. So the open burning smoke control regulation says if you have a venting index of 50 or greater, you're allowed to burn. And of course, you've got restrictions from schools and hospitals, etc. But what we've noticed over the years is that the venting index, as you'll see as we go through the slides, doesn't always seem to work. The smoke doesn't disperse. So here's an example one of a venting index of 50 at 4:14 in the afternoon. And the picture's not coming up so good, but you can see how it's all hazy in the background. So next slide, please. Now this one's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's 56. And this is an example 2, and it's one of 4 photos, so you can see what happens here. So again, here's example 2, getting closer to the source. And then 3. And then 4. So here you're seeing the smoke particles and ashes entering into the atmosphere. And again, this was a venting index of 56 mid-afternoon. The next one, please. So here's a venting index of 61, and this is a photo 1 of 3. And again, you can see what the source is here. And then this is what is a classic temperature inversion. I waited about 5 years for a photo like this. And photo 3, this shows what happens to the smoke, and the pollution is actually going down into the community rather than being dispersed up. So vehicle emissions, anything when there's temperature aversions, all stays in the bottom part of the valley. Now this is at 10:27 in the morning, but the venting index is higher, it's 71, and you can see again poor smoke dispersal. And again, that's the same thing, 78 later, just a few minutes later. Now this one here, 4:46 in the afternoon, same thing. Now here's venting index. You know, it doesn't come up too good on your slide, but actually I took this photo and it was OK Falls area, and you can see the smoke streaming across, and it actually goes all the way to the Caledon area. So that's just an example on how far smoke can travel. But it's a venting index of 86, and it was taken in the morning. Now this here is a venting index of 99, and go ahead. Looks like some of these got mixed up somehow when they got transferred over. So now this is, go ahead. Go ahead. Now, so poor burning practices worsened by, now we're going to see a few examples of open air burning with poor venting, and we'll see what happens here. So we're seeing people burning at venting index of 38. Now the open burning smoke control regulation does not cover backyard burning. And conservation officers will enforce it if people are burning, but it may not stand up in court because they do not cover backyard burning or prunings, but basically land clearing. So this is 1138. Yes, sorry. Yeah, venting index of 38. And again, you can just see how the smoke just sits. Go ahead. And this is a late morning venting. We're not sure what the venting was on this day. But these photos come from all communities within the South Okanagan. Now here we have an orchardist, and many orchardists are starting to do this now, especially when they have high density trees. He hauled his wood waste, the smaller wood waste, all to the landfill. He built himself a trailer. And then his larger trees were chipped with a larger chipper. Now on the second photo, the next slide please, you will see that when he got home, he actually took a photo of what was happening with his fellow grower down the road. So he just thought that would be a good example to show folks. So, and the next photo, please. Now this one here is very interesting. I took this and I thought it was an orchard burn because it was such a large plume of smoke. So this is photo 1 of 3, and it was taken at 3 in the afternoon. So basically what it was pine branches, and that's the pile there. So I was really surprised at how much smoke comes from a very small pile of yard waste. And then photo 3, there was not another burn going on that day in that community, and that one burn, you could see how the smoke has gone over the community there. And this is an example of grass, leaves, and prunings left to smolder, and they were actually left to smolder over a period of 7 days. And so the bylaw would cover something like that, because that's what we would consider irresponsible burning. So the photos you're seeing is what is considered irresponsible burning. So again, here's a yard waste burn. Smoke entered the home of a neighbor, and it was reported to the local fire department, because in this area they do have a burning bylaw. And of course, they were burning when they weren't supposed to be burning, so they were able to shut them down. Next photo. Now this here is garbage burning. That goes on in communities as well, and we hope to address that under the smoke control bylaw. The conservation officers don't seem to be able to enforce it so good under the open burning smoke control regulations. So under this regulation, we hope to have more immediate action. So here you can see the black plume, and we actually witnessed them dumping their stuff onto the pile. So that's just an example of what is going on in communities. It also goes on in, this was a fellow who was doing, trying to get rid of his stump, and so he was taking his garage sale stuff and burning it on there. I actually thought it was a house fire, and turned out that's what it was. And this is an example of burn barrels. There's a lot of burn barrels out there, and again, they're used for burning garbage. Some people use them to burn their white paper bills and stuff, but we discourage that because, of course, white paper is bleached, and that releases diazinon and furans. This is another version of a burn barrel, so there's many types out there. Next slide, please. And this is, you can't see it quite clearly on this here again, but it's a bathtub burn barrel. So they were cleaning up their yard for development. And then of course, open burning, we see things being burned there as well. You can see the black smoke, so you know there's something prohibitive on that pile. And then this was a burn pit. We've shut down a number of burn pits. We're finally getting the education out there, but it's amazing that people try to burn even fridges and appliances. So this was one, and thanks to a citizen, we were able to shut this burn pit down. Garbages and campfires, we do a lot of education, like at the Children's Festival, where we do these great games that we play so that they don't burn their marshmallow bags and cereal boxes into campfires. So we're getting the education out to the young folks to not to burn their garbage. Land clearing for development. This was hauled to another area for burning. There was lots of dirt and other waste mix in the pile. And as you'll get a closer look, this kind of thing is going on out in our communities as well. Demolition waste, you can see that this pile is again not coming up there, but he has, the amount of smoke coming from this pile wouldn't be considered a nuisance, but what we'd want to be careful of is you can see a lot of white boards in that pile, so those are painted wood, and that person would be educated not to be throwing those things on the pile, but rather separating them. Orchard removal, we're seeing less and less of this now since we have the chipping program, but every orchard that was being removed that we've seen was adding their treated posts, wire, irrigation tubing, and that was about 5 years ago, and we're seeing less and less of that now. In fact, 2 years ago, I think, was the last time I've seen a pile with some of that in. So we've come a long way in educating growers about proper orchard removal. And the other thing we're going to address that's very important in the smoke control bylaw, because it's not addressed anywhere else in any bylaws, is basically good burning practices when it comes to wood heating. So here we have an outdoor boiler. I've just put a little circle. You can see the amount of smoke that comes from an outdoor boiler. Now, the agriculture waste discharge regulation does have boiler emission ratings for the agriculture community that's using it for greenhouses and that. So that's a separate regulation. But again, they would have to be burning correctly and burning properly. So the next slide, please. So and this one was a report from a neighbor. His fire alarm kept going off because this was a residential greenhouse, which wouldn't be allowed to have an agricultural boiler. But they had a wood stove in there, and it constantly smoked. So this would be addressed would now give us some avenue under the bylaw to address this. Home heating with wood as well, whether it's wood stoves or fireplaces, again, that's an example of poor burning practice. And if a neighbor complained, we would go out and educate them on proper burning techniques. Unattended burns is another issue that we find that there's many burns we see with nobody there. So again, that would be considered too much smoke. So that's the end of the presentation, and if you have some comments, we can go through each section if you like, but if you've read it already, I could take some of you can discuss the comments, or if you'd like, I can go through each section. They're very short, and it's up to yourselves.
I think I'll just open it up to council. We have another presentation after yours, so yeah. I'm going to open it up for a few comments from council. And I'm really excited about this. As I say, in March, I know that my phone's going to ring on certain days. I look at the plumes of smoke, and I know that I'm going to have phone calls when I get home if I'm out anywhere. People are phoning about this issue. It's really important, and there's so many people out there now that have challenged systems with their breathing and that COPD and all the issues that are out there. I mean, there was a period of time when kids didn't used to have asthma way back, but now, I mean, the number of kids that have asthma and that is just it's huge. And this issue that you're addressing right here is certainly leads to making that a lot worse for a lot of folks that live here. So I'm excited. Anything you can do is good for our towns.
Well, we find that this bylaw, just to add, is setting a social norm as well, and many officials have looked at bylaws as setting a social norm. So by addressing smoke, we set the social norm that if you want to burn, basically burn properly.
Council, any comments, any questions, anything we can do? Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, just to say that, yes, I think it would be very welcome to have this. It's a problem, and you know, when we, it's one of the dirty secrets, I guess, of our beautiful valley that you know, that there, especially in the fall, that there used to be a lot of this, and it's not healthy, and so anything that can be done, and especially in terms of offering the chipping and other ways of disposing of huge amounts of wood, but just the stoves, I think that's a really good thing, and I'm glad that it applies to municipalities. I was always a little bit in doubt as to whether the RDOS matters are just for the rural areas, or are there also municipalities?
Yes, and air quality is a function of municipalities and rural areas, so any programs that fall through under air quality are right across the board.
Good.
Some communities have, where if you're burning, I believe, like orchard wood, it needs a 2-year drying period or a 1-year drying period. Do you have anything that specific in this bylaw where?
No, again, we didn't. That's in Central Okanagan. They have a smoke control bylaw, and there's a lot of stipulations and guidelines in there, like so many meters from. It's more like a burning bylaw, but addressing smoke as well. And we decided not to go that route because we don't want to issue permits for this. We want it to be more of an educational tool. And also, we do want it to eventually be region-wide, so covering areas outside of local fire protection services. And in order to do that, you can't be regulating burning under the Wildland Fire Act. So we kept it very simple.
Great. Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Janice, I had the opportunity on Thursday to see this presentation also without the pictures, and it's absolutely amazing, and good job.
Thank you.
You yourself said it, this is an educational, it is also a bylaw, and I wish there was some way that a video could be made and then made available to the schools and put on our local channel, get it out to the public, because certainly there are people who are going to burn and not think of the consequences to the rest of the communities. But a lot of people really don't know. And people like us who live in homes who burn maybe in our fireplaces or have wood stoves or go camping and burn garbage because we think we're doing the right thing. These are all things that a bylaw will never touch us. We're not orchardists. We don't have vineyards. So, but we are probably guilty. So I really encourage the RDOS and council, if there's any way we can help, and our local channel 18, that if a video could be done, you have the PowerPoint, you've done an awesome audio, if we could just get that out some way. But great job.
Very good. Thank you. We'll do that.
Thanks, Councillor Chadsey. Anything further? Thank you very much for coming. Great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, the video component was really good. So it really helps people. I was looking at the venting numbers, and I'm going, it makes you wonder where they get the numbers from.
City of Kelowna. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.
The next presentation will be from Jurgen Reinhards, Commodore of the Lake Osoyoos Sailing Club.
Mr. Mayor, Council, and Town Administrator. First of all, I wish to thank Councilor Chastity for suggesting that I take the opportunity and come as a delegate and speak on behalf of this club. I'm here today to discuss the overnight stay on the Lake Osoyoos sailing lease premises. On September 10, 11, and 12, where we hold our annual sailing regatta. Mr. Mayor, it may be that the wording in the letter that I wrote to the town caused some misunderstanding as of the request for overnight parking. I'll give you some background, if I may. The sailing club has been in operation on this specific site since 1964. In 1983, we purchased the old railroad station and moved the station to its present foundation at our cost. Regattas have been held there since 1964, with some out-of-town participants staying overnight on our lease. And the regattas usually were in October, but we have forwarded in September to temperature. At no time did we allow or encourage the overnight parking on town's parking lots, which is behind the clubhouse. Mr. Mayor and Council, as longtime residents of Osoyoos, you are aware where our location, or where we are, and you probably have witnessed our sailing regattas as have tourists that are staying at this time of the year in Osoyoos. During our 47 years of running the regatta, we have had no complaints from town administrators, tourists, or immediate residents that live adjacent to the sailing club, or the business community about lost business or unsightly campers. In 2009, as we have done in previous years, we informed the town that we will have an overnight parking for that year on our premises. The letter's intention was to inform the town of the upcoming activity. That's where it may have gone a little bit astray, where we asked for permission, and could have been just an informative letter. It was an intent as a matter of courtesy. The reply from the town was, yeah, okay, you can park for 209, but that would be the last year ever. The question came to us then and said, why would that be? And the reason we're giving that the town is upgrading the area adjacent to the sailing club, and parking overnight will not be part of the overall beautification of this area. Again, Mr. Mayor and councillors, we are parking on our property and not on public property. The administration put forth 5 points why we should not be allowed to continue our regatta practice, as we have for many years. The LOSC regatta participants do not park their motorhomes on public parking areas overnight. The 5 points that were put forth by the administration are as follows. Number one, improvements in this area would set a new standard. Parking lot area is under construction. We can work around parking lot construction with some scheduling and planning. Besides, access to our private property probably should not be denied. Support local business. We have a good relation with all the local business people. They are supporting us and have supplied us with many prizes to present our sailors. We buy groceries, etc., and prepare food for many people. From out-of-town participants and parents, there will be, at this particular regatta, about 40 people that are staying at local hotels and motels and on local campgrounds. Number 4, visual impact on tourists and residents. As I mentioned before, we have had, in all of our 47 years, never one complaint brought against us, either from tourists, local residents, police, or bylaw enforcement. Item number 5 was community impacts of continually providing this privilege. Again, all our vehicles will be parked on our leased property. But how can that be a privilege? Another item that was brought forward was security. Over this last year, we had 4 break-ins in our facility. We had 1 damaged motorboat, which we use our coach boat, to a tune of $600. 2 weeks later, we had 1 kayak that was tampered with, and a week after that, it was stolen, the cost of $2,500. And 1 damaged hull on the Seaspray, where people sit on our boats, and being of the light construction, damage not repairable. So there's vandalism problems. I'd like to acknowledge them or not, but they are there. An overview report from September the 7th, 2010, to Council from the administration states that factors relating to business and potential visual impact on tourists and residents allowing camping in parking lots and along lakeshore. First of all, we are not staying overnight on any town parking lot, nor do we camp along lakeshore. We are parking on our leased land. Any vehicle will be at least 60 feet away from the water's edge and under trees that are on. Maybe we are going to have a few motorhomes that are parked on the house side, and maybe 10 or 2 behind the hedge at the north end of the building that is shielding us from anybody that is walking along the existing parking lot. Or if they are walking along the shore line, they can see us. Surely that's not too offensive, excuse me, as it is being on sailing clubs. Now, there were options given by the administration to town council as to allow or not to allow. In summary, I'd like to review some of the key points. Item number 1 would be overnight parking of motorhomes on our property. Parking is on our leased land and not on public property. Duration of stay, the length of an event. The administration put forth 5 points in the September 7th report to the mayor and council. The options were, number 1, allow camping for an additional year. Allow camping. Remove the need to ask again. Limit camping to leasehold only. Don't allow camping. And last, item number 5, camp at the desert park. The administration recommended option 4, which is do not allow camping. I wish to add option number 6. And option number 6 is allow overnight stay during regatta time, but inform administration, mayor, and council each year as a matter of courtesy. Mr. Mayor and Council, Town Administrator, I'd like to thank you for your time and for fair ruling. Fair ruling on this matter. And in conclusion, I'd like to say, we'd like to invite you all to come down to our regatta and have a look and see how things are run and handled. Thank you.
Right. There may be some questions, Mr. Reinhards. Any questions from council? Councilor Cronmiller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just something came to mind. How many participants would be in the regatta?
Last count, we probably have 25, 20.
How many campers?
No more than, from what I can tell right now, Going on previous years, no more than 6. We have, adding to that, we have on our property 15 stalls.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Ryan?
I was going to ask some of the same question.
Okay.
How many you expected to have that would be staying over or with a camper? Or
No more than, it's a guess, but no more than that. Going on passing. Most of the parents that come with their children will come from Kelowna, from the Kelowna Sailing Club and Kelowna Yacht Club. There will be some from Vernon, and the rest of people will come from Alberta.
And if I may add, what I see down there is usually the younger folks, the kids that are doing the camping in the tents and things like that.
Exactly.
I think the other folks are looking for a bit better bed. Anything, council? Okay. Thanks, Mr. Thanks for your presentation, Jurgen, and we're actually going to deal with that right now. Because I didn't actually get it into the business section of the agenda, we will deal with it. It is the Sailing Club request for camping. Mr. Reinhards did walk us through took my job away from me and walked us through the administrative report on this. So what are council's wishes on the resolution, please? Councilor Rhodes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that we accept motion number 1 to allow the camping for an additional year. And if there's a seconder, I'd like to speak to that.
Seconder. Councilor Ryan, please. Speaking to the motion, Councilor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listening to the presentation made me feel a lot more comfortable about moving forward with this camping. I think I may have had, just as Mr. Reinhards mentioned earlier, that there might have been a misunderstanding or a misperception of what actually goes on there. I was envisioning, 25 or 30 campers down there and, fires at night and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for clearing that up. That helped an awful lot. I'm a little reluctant to move forward with your suggestion of number 6. I'm hoping that over the next year that there's going to be a considerable amount of work, good, positive, favorable work in that area down there. And I would like to see the impact of it over the next year. I think that there's going to be some trails go through there and that kind of thing, and it might help separate the sailing club's property away from the rest of the area down there, so that it's clearly marked which is leased property and which is public property. And so that's why I'd be speaking in favor of going for an additional year.
Great, thank you. Councilor Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that there obviously isn't anything happening there at the moment, and it is after the peak of our tourist season. I certainly always enjoy seeing those boats out there during the regatta. And I don't know, I think we probably need to look to see whether there are any provisions in the lease for camping and so on, but we obviously have a long tradition here. However, I guess while I support this, the reality is that there are going to be changes there, and at some point in time, you may get a no. And I think you probably realize that there's going to be pathways, there's going to be other things, and I think that the distinction between parking under the trees on what's your leasehold and parking out in the parking lot is a very fine one that other people may not appreciate. But I certainly am well disposed to give you this opportunity in this year to do it.
Councilor Cronmiller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Reinhardt, for your presentation. I think it, in my mind, when I listen to the idea that a lot of younger people will be there, the fact that maybe 6 or 7 campers is what we're talking about, not 30 or 40. It's not going to be a large campground or something in that way. And they'll all be parked on their leased property for 2 nights, probably at max, maybe 3. I really don't have any trouble with granting this and to continue to grant it. I think that the parking lot itself, that would be a different case. And if there were overflow into the parking lot, that would be different. But just 5 or 6 campers on the sailing club property that we lease to them, I wouldn't have a problem with allowing it. So for another year or for 4 or 5, that'd be fine with me.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Chadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that I just want to address a few issues that might help explain staff's role in all of this. Part of this is a land use issue, and that is whether or not the property is zoned for RV camping. The problem is that we spend a lot of time during the tourist season trying to eliminate illegal camping, and that would be people camping on the lakeshore, people camping in the spit, which I know you've probably witnessed. And for the general public, they don't see any, there's no definitive line, no signage, no nothing. So they see one RV here, they think, well, it's fine, we can do it also. So one leads to another and another. So I think that this is partly why staff was reluctant to have this continue. But those can be mitigated, and I'm going to suggest that in the off-season, between now and your next regatta, that maybe you meet with staff and let's figure out a way that this can be done to protect the interests of the rest of the community, so that we don't get other people camping because they think it's okay. And that can be done by signage, simple signage, private property, regatta camping only, or whatever. In terms of the support of the business community, I think that staff is somewhat referring to other RV parks, hotels, etc., and you've kind of clarified that by saying that this is not just that there are regatta people using other accommodation, and I certainly had the impression that everyone that was in the regatta was parking an RV, and so that's why it's always good to come face to face so that we can sort things out. And so I have no problem with this proceeding for this year, and I think that we can come up with something so that the use of the land as for RV parking for a special occasion, and how we protect that so that the rest of the tourists don't think they can just plop down anywhere. I think we can resolve that.
Thank you, Councillor Chadsey. We do have a bit of a long haul here, so we're trying to get through this, and of course we're heading into that public hearing at 7 o'clock tonight. I also am in favor of this. This is my front yard, and there's no issue with the parking. And as we work through this, and it's a small number, you know, again, I don't think everyone is aware that the small number that we're talking about down there, if there's 6 tents down there or whatever, it's a pretty small item. And I think for all the people that are there, a little inside joke, if I talked about the green bus that's been there since mid-June, and he manages to camp there every day. Yeah, when you look at some of the issues, this is really not that big an issue. I do sort of support the 1 year at this point until we get all that marina thing all straightened around, and when that gets ironed out, perhaps, and there probably should be an ongoing process that was referred to where you're looking at 5 years or something like that. But if we can do this now for the 1 year, get you rolling, and see what the changes are, how the changes are going to impact the situation down there. Anything further, Councillor Ryan?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I understand that the green bus is a day user and isn't there overnight.
Well, that would be from 6 a.m. to from about 5 to 6 to about 11:05 p.m. So that is a day user, yes. He's gone for 7 hours. Well, a little bit short because there's a bit of a budger in there. So probably 6 hours and 50 minutes he's away, and the rest of the time it's a full-time resident. Mr. Romanko?
Well, just speaking to a couple things, and certainly last year being my first summer in the community, I actually went through at the time of the regatta, and there were people parked in the town's parking lot, and that's in terms of doing the report. That was part of my background in terms of the report as well. So whether that person was part of the regatta or was part of the general public who was reading into the situation, I think that's something that is part of the report as well. Also, that the green bus, we were on it in terms of bylaw, and the report that I got from bylaw, I don't know how they do it, but yes, that's exactly the hours that they kept, and we had no provision for that to keep them out of there. So just to add that to the
and to be fair to all our bylaw folks and the administration, we're not going to craft a bylaw for one guy. The guy found a way to camp there for 2 months, and I think he's still there. I've been away for a week, but I'm sure he's still there. So what do? You know, it's just one of those silly issues. Any further input from council? There is a motion on the table. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Have a great regatta. Next item up, there's no water matters, is some correspondence. We've received a letter of thanks from Jenessa Maddalena for she received the Town of Osoyoos bursary. So a nice letter of thanks, I guess a motion to receive. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Cronmiller, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. The bylaws we will set aside for a minute, and that brings us into the business section of the meeting. Business 1, council meeting reports for Councillors Chadsley, Rhodes, and Ryan. This is the... Okay. Okay. Sorry, with the Granicus webcasting here, I can get a little bit ahead of the recording process. So I do have to slow down every once in a while. I get on a roll, and yes, thank you. Okay, so we do have the council meeting reports for councillors of the town, Chadsey, Rhodes, and Ryan. This would be for $100 each. Looking for a motion, please. Councillor Cronmiller, Councillor Chadsey. No discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. We will pay those people. Under business number 2, we've had a lot of input into the hours of operation in the fitness room at the Sonora Center, and one of the pleasures of having afternoon meetings is we get to have staff at our meetings. So we have the Director of Recreation, Gerald Davies, here, going to present this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you is a report in terms of the fitness room and the hours of operation at the Sonora Community Center. We did a survey some time ago this past summer, and we had probably 65 to 70 people who responded, which were regular users to the fitness room. And when we brought this to council a month or so ago, the recommendation for staff was to bring something back in terms of how we can do this, list some pros and cons if we're going to bring staff in to house the open hours or to do it in terms of a key lock. So what I've done is I put two options. I listed a bunch of pros and cons for both, and I've actually made the recommendation to go forward with the keypad option for the simple fact that it's easy to do. There's still a cost involved, but not as much as bringing staff in. And also, you know, with bringing staff in, we may look at, you know, creating a full-time position with benefits and the whole 9 yards. I have listed some monetary values here of $8,500 per year as a possibility for staff. And that's also, you know, opening at 6 a.m. As per the survey for the needs that were listed, and also to, you know, open on days like Fridays or later in the evening. So with that, we also had some other discussions about, you know, running other programs earlier in the morning, later at night, because the gym could be opened to accommodate those needs, which would be something that was, you know, useful, especially for our community, and you know, not leading into the BCRPA for the next one, but in terms of accommodating what people want. So my recommendation was for council to go with number 2 in terms of having a keypad installed so users can access the fitness room without or outside the regular hours of operation.
Great. Council, please. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Davies, I had a couple of questions. The first is about the increase that you're proposing, 10%. You know, in looking at the actual, you know, 10 and 12%, you know, you start getting into double digits, and sounds like a lot. But when you look at the actual amounts of money that this represents, it's not a heck of a lot. And I'm wondering what was behind your thinking to recommend 10 as opposed to, well, let's say 12, because I guess those were the ones you were really looking
Councilor Ryan, I don't think that's part of this package.
No.
No.
Oh, isn't it? Okay.
No.
Sorry.
No, that was from the committee of the whole this morning.
Okay.
And it's not appearing today.
Okay.
That I'm aware of. That was committee of the whole, and what we're doing here was basically just the hours of operation of the fitness room.
If I could interrupt, Mr. Mayor,
yeah.
It is on our bylaw for an increase in fees and services, which this would be part of. And one of the things that were listed in here that would be part of that is to have a fee associated with having access to the. But it's not this though.
But it's not the 10% Okay, now we're looking for a little clarity here,
Yeah.
Mr. Romanko.
I'm just curious, was that part of the bylaws, the fees and?
That is correct.
That's part of the fees and charges bylaws?
Yes.
That we moved to later on in the agenda?
Okay.
So I'm ahead of myself.
Okay.
I got lost in trying to get to where we are. Okay, excuse me, pardon me. That's so what we're dealing with here is what?
What we're dealing with here is the hours of operation for the fitness room with two options. One was to do it with staff, and one was to do it electronically with a key process. And there was costs associated with those. So, do you want to just hit those high points again, Mr. Davis, on what the options were? Bringing in staff to open the fitness room for the extended hours of the operation, or to install a keypad so users can access the facility on their own. Because particularly early in the morning, that is a staff building. So we do have a person in there who could be looking at the monitors in case of personal injury and dealing with the safety issues. So everything is in place, and I believe for one of them was going to have a $8,500 a year charge with the staffing versus roughly a $3,500 one-time cost to get the key lock in there, and then the people would be accessing that through the key lock. We would know who's there, and it's all a fully monitored room there. The fitness room was all fully monitored, and we have the cameras and all that sort of thing. So all our security and all our safeguards are everything there, and it came down to which option that council was going to entertain. Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry about that. I'd like to make a motion that we approve option number 2 with the addition that this be put over to next budget session rather than as recommended in the earlier wording.
Okay, so that's amended. That's the option is option 2, but not happening this fiscal year.
Not immediately. It would go into the budget.
Go into the budget process. Thank you. And that seconder was Councillor Chadsey. Further discussion, please. Councillor Chadsey. Councillor Rhodes first, speaking to the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not clear in here. Does this make it accessible 24 hours a day?
What we actually did with the alarm companies, the company that we use, they could actually arm or disarm the system as we need it. The keypad that would be associated, they would still need, the conditions set forth. So if somebody wanted to get in at 6 a.m., that's the conditions that we set to the user. They can come in at 6 a.m. If we want the facility at 24/7, we can set the alarm to do that. My understanding is that we wouldn't. We would do it 6 a.m. and maybe till 11 p.m. at night. And one of the reasons we had talked about it as staff and through council was just the safety, liability, getting people there all hours of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. And plus it wasn't on the actual survey that was conducted. The peak hours that people wanted, the most important were the 6 a.m. early starts. And not even so much for even after hours on a Friday.
Councillor Chadsey, please.
Thank you, Gerald. The cost to increase the staff is about $8,500. Would that take care of the monitoring and therefore decrease our liability? And would that also take care of the cleaning problem, the janitorial service problem?
No, I think on both, depending on how that would be set up for the hours. The cleaning is still going to be an issue. If we got like 20 people in there, even say 5 or 6 people in the morning, is going to be difficult. Now we can adjust our maintenance hours to accommodate that. Maybe later at night, even earlier than that in the morning. But that's pretty much the same. The true costs of $8,500, we wouldn't, have the extra costs for security because it's already in place. But it's already set with the overall alarm system in the building, which that is included.
So for a net $5,000, though, like if one of the options is to increase staff hours, then staff has the ability, or they're now monitoring, which is something that that won't be available.
That's correct.
Through the keypad. Does that also give you the ability to use that staff person for other components of running the Sonora Center?
Actually, how we would set that up is we have a third staff person who is currently in our budget for less than the 30 hours as the other two are. Mm-hmm. We would set that person up to work 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 10 a.m., sorry, minimum 4-hour shift. And then the other 2 people that we have would carry on with till the end of the day until 10 o'clock at night. So our 2 people who are working 30 hours a week would work a little bit less, and the person who's not working 30 hours a week would work more. The overall net would be that amount.
Okay, but and overall, would that give you, you're getting an increase in hours, would that benefit the other components of Sonora Center?
I think in terms of liability, it would be easier. There's not going to be any changes in cost of what we pay for liability or anything like that. But we would be, even according to our MIA person, Mr. Gibson, there are other municipalities who do the same type of thing, where they do have somebody sign a waiver form and they enter the gymnasium under no supervision. But that's one of the cons too, so.
Great, thank you.
Is there anything else from council? The motion, do we have the motion, please?
Council had some access outside of the hours of that it be included in the budget for 2011 rather than being implemented.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item of business, business 3, the BCRPA Infrastructure Renewal Letter of Support. Also, Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Before you is a report from the BCRPA. We actually received a letter asking for support in infrastructure renewal. The BCRPA has, in the last 5 years, done a fairly thorough job in looking at our recreation facilities, and they're in the process right now of bringing this forward to get more capital funding to improve facilities, to build new facilities to accommodate our different demographics, and to make people aware that the facilities that are currently in BC are 25 years to 35 years of age. In the study itself, it says the life expectancy of the facilities that are being produced now in terms of its green revolution, reducing carbon emissions and all that fun stuff, is about 50 years. So what they're looking for from their member municipalities, which we are a member in good standing, is a letter of support to that fact.
Thank you. Councillor Chadsey, please.
I'll make that recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Cronmiller, seconder. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And I guess our next item of business, which was the one that unfortunately Councillor Ryan wanted to talk to, that will be coming up at the end of reports, and we'll deal with that then. That was a little unfortunate when I moved the item on you.
Well, I've caught up to you now, Mr.
Okay. Okay. The next item up would be the. I just see that we're looking for Mr. Cunningham. So we'll go to business 5. Report from the Deputy Corporate Officer on the license to renew, and Ms. Van Vienen will present, and Councillor Ryan, please.
Yes, I'd like to excuse myself, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councillor Ryan is on the executive, or is the director of the Lawn Bowling Club, so he has recused himself for this item. Ms. Van Vienen, please.
In 2000, Town of Osoyoos into a license to occupy the Osoyoos lawn. That better? Sorry. With the Osoyoos Lawn Bowling Club for the use of a portion of the land near Gyro Beach. The agreement was granted for a term to run from March 1st to February 28th, 2005. It was renewed for additional 5 years, and they are now asking for another renewal up to 2015. This agreement does not give them exclusive use. The town can still use that property if it needs it for other purposes. It does allow them to use it for lawn bowling. So they're just looking for a renewal.
Okay. Councillor Cronmiller?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the motion that we provide a renewal agreement for the next 5 years.
Councillor Chadsey, any discussion on that? Ms. Van Vienen, anything we should be aware of? This is pretty straightforward.
It does not affect the waterfront master.
Okay, great. All in favor? Opposed? That has passed. If we could have Councillor Ryan returned. We need him. Moving on to business 6, which would be the water conservation plan. I believe CAO Romanko, Mr. Romanko, was going to handle that. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Crew Consulting was commissioned with the responsibility to develop a water conservation plan for the town of Osoyoos. At the November 16th, 2009 Committee of the Whole meeting, Terry Underwood presented the draft of the plan to Council, and also a summary of the information as provided was attached was provided to council. A final document has now been prepared and is being brought to council for final approval. Future actions were provided by council for inclusion in the business plan this year, and I'll just quickly run over some of the things that we are doing out of the water conservation report right now. Is we're identifying the high water users and putting in water meters into their businesses so that they can get an idea of their consumptions. We finished changing over touchpad our reading systems to a radio read system to allow for when we will be doing water metering to the next level of technology in this area. And also, council was presented with the opportunity to input into the development of a framework for a new water conservation bylaw on April 19th. This bylaw will be presented back to council in this winter in preparation for next spring implementation. Administration is requesting that council approve this plan. Approval of the plan will assist in receiving green funding for water metering and securing funding for the Northwest Sewer Project and water twinning.
Great. Thank you. Councilor Rhodes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the plan as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Cronmiller. Speaking to the motion, please. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My opinion of this plan is that it's a great plan. Covers a broad base of water conservation difficulties and offers a lot of suggestions on how to correct them. And I just want to caution everyone that's listening that every time it rains in our community, we have a vision that our problems have gone away. Never the case. We have multiples of weeks of rain. It takes about a day of warm weather to return us to our pending drought difficulties that we have in South Okanagan. This plan is an awesome way for us to make our water systems better and lengthen the use of water that we have, and certainly do our part towards the environment.
Thank you. Councillor Chachi, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out a few things that are part of this report, and I won't go through them all because it is quite lengthy. One of the things is that we are the only municipality that has not put 1 gallon of treated water back into our lake. The maximum daily demand hasn't changed in the last 10 years, and yet our population has grown. So we are seeing some benefits from our existing bylaws, such as low flow fixtures. We will have to start maintaining with chlorine, and so some of us are going to have a small chlorine taste. And most of our water system is relatively new, according to the ages of water systems, I guess. It's less than 50 years. And so if there was significant leakage, we wouldn't see So most of the water system is relatively new. I'm just going on reading some more. We want to start twinning, which is using our irrigation water for more irrigation and saving our municipal system just for domestic use. It's an amazing report. It talks a lot about the different things it will cover. So I urge everyone to go online, look at our water conservation plan. And I support it, absolutely.
Thanks, Councillor Chadsey. And again, this is a 50-page report. So there's a lot of depth to it. There's a lot of action plans that we're looking at. There's lots to be implemented, but it's certainly a plan for where we are, where we're going, and this is the kickoff for it. So, is there anything, Councillor Ryan, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would just encourage people to read this document. I know it was very exciting when we saw it the first time, and reviewed it quite in detail. And what we did was to fast track some of the items that Mr. Romenko identified that are already underway. So we fast-track those, but we have others, and they'll be coming forward through various bylaws to both include education as well as action plans and implementation. So I'm pleased that we are supporting it, and I hope that it will gain and gather the funding that we need to do some of the things that we propose in here that will benefit, especially those living in our systems 8 and 9.
And again, going back on what Councillor Chadsey had said earlier, although our population is increasing and we're looking at that, our water use is mainlining, straight lining. It's staying the same or actually going down a bit. So obviously people are doing it through the education and the xeriscaping and some of the other issues that are out there. Sometimes when you even look at densification can lower water use. When you take out a yard, somebody with a yard that's growing grass and vegetables and everything else, and if that becomes 6 units, the water usage on that place goes down. It doesn't go up. So there's some interesting facts that you can pick up when you go through some of these documents. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to add to all my fellow councillors and the mayor, it's a pleasure to see this document. It's been a number of years I've been on council, and you waited for it and heard about it, and so it's really terrific to see that it's here. When we live in the only desert in Canada, it's imperative that we have things in place to deal with water and the conservation of water, and it's really exciting to see the things that are in this plan. And I have to commend our engineering firm of True Engineering for their work in producing this document, and I think that it's a great start. And water metering has always been on the horizon for us, and I'm sure it will be getting closer with this document. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please. Opposed? That has carried. Thank you very much. And that was a good report. We're going to go to business number 4, which was the regional growth strategy for the South Okanagan. This is coming through the regional district, but this would be the Osoyoos in the Osoyoos context. And there's some changes there in the OCP, and we have Mr. Alan Cunningham, the planner, that's going to present. Mr. Cunningham, please.
Yeah, I want to talk this afternoon about the process for inserting a regional context statement into our official community plan. This has come about because of the recent approval of the regional growth strategy for the South Okanagan. Within 1 year of approval of a regional growth strategy, the member municipalities have to insert a regional context statement into their OCP showing how it will complement the regional growth strategy itself. There's a public process to be followed, starting with council approving some OCP amendments, then going on to a public information meeting and a public hearing, and then culminating hopefully in a successful submission of the regional context statement to the regional board who have the approval authority. Just proceed to the recommendations page of the staff report and more elaboration around that. The first staff recommendation is that council directs staff to commence the process for adding a regional context statement to our OCP, showing how it, 1, presently complements the regional growth strategy for the South Okanagan, and 2, as applicable, we brought into closer consistency with the RDOS. And it's the latter point which I want to turn now with respect to the second recommendation, which is to confirm what contingent ALR growth areas it supports for either retaining or deleting in an OCP amendment, and direct staff to immediately advise the Agricultural Land Commission, ALC, of its position. And to clarify the background behind this, the largest amount of overlap between our OCP and the regional growth strategy occurs within the human settlements section of the RDOS, which refers largely to growth management policy. There's two policies in the RDOS which perhaps we have departed from to some degree, need to be brought into closer consistency. And those two policies refer to protecting the agricultural land reserve. Second, to ensure that as much as possible our growth management boundaries coincide and do not go over ALR boundaries. When we approved our last OCP, we included a number of ALR contingent growth areas. These are growth areas which are delineate areas which are presently within the ALR, but Council at the time thought should be reserved for potential urban growth in the future. At the time we approved our OCP, the Agricultural Land Commission supported the inclusion, but with some caveats that we had to put in some language saying that they would never approve any LR contingent area. The only exception to that was Southeast Middle Arc, where they give preliminary approval. So figure 6-1, which is in your packet, identifies a number of these growth areas, and I want Council to consider which ones it may delete or retain CP. That would provide the subject matter for the OCP amendment. So the first one, and they have a numerical number, the airport and industrial area, C1. Part of that has already come out for our industrial subdivision, but there's still other areas which are in there which are within the AL. Second one is C2, the Laranjo property, which is highway. And then we have a growth area which is called C3 Metal Arc Drive area. And for purposes of this report, split those into two parts. First, the western portion of C3, which is to the west of Metal Arc Drive, and then the eastern part to the east of Metal Arc Drive and at the back of Mariposa Care Facility. Two areas for your consideration. Then there's the southeast Metal Arc portion of C4, which is the subject, the ALR block exclusion that Council submitted earlier in the year and will be considered by the Agricultural Land Commission quite shortly. And then there's the western portion of that area, 4. And then lastly, there's the C5 Wish property growth area. That has been the subject of the recent rejection by the Agricultural Land Commission for exclusion. I'd like you to consider those and identify which ones you want to retain, which ones you want to delete for the purpose of CP amendment, then go to the public process. It should be remembered that via a public hearing, people will come and say perhaps why their areas should be retained or not. So we want to take their ideas and concerns forward in making their final decision. So this is not a commitment by Council at this point to a public process. And then after staff brings back their proposed OCP amendments, we've tentatively scheduled for October the 18th, set dates for public information and a public hearing.
So at this point, would we make the recommended, would we make a resolution to support recommendations that are there, 1, 2, and 3?
If that's what Council wishes to do.
Recommend a resolution? And that's going to take it forward.
Yeah, the only one that you'd have to make a decision about one way or another would be in this Laranjo properties. Consider for industrial use. So you'd have to identify for staff purposes whether you wanted that retained or deleted.
Okay. Okay. So if we were looking at the items on an individual basis, if we were at C1, that's retained because that's already been sold. We'll come back to the Laranjo. So then the western portion of C3 Meadow Lark Drive area, that was to delete our hold on that. Is that right? Okay, and that would be going back to Agricultural Land Reserve, ALR.
ALR,
It's still in the ALR,
Yeah,
but we've got a designation on it.
the designation would be lifted off it.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. And then the eastern portion, that would be the area directly behind Mariposa. We would retain that. And the southeast portion, C4, which is, that's our current piece in the Meadowlark Drive area, which is the 16 hectare. That's the whole piece on the.
That's the whole block that's the subject of our exclusion application.
I could refer to that as the fire hall property plus all that other area around there.
Correct.
Okay, and then the western portion, which would be the other side of that, we would delete that.
Right.
Remove our designation on that. And then the last one was the Wish property, which was turned down by the Agricultural Land Commission, and we would be removing our designation on that property.
Correct.
Okay, so now we come back up to the Laranjo property, which has been in and out, and there's a very, very long history associated with that property. And there was a staff recommendation or consideration was to retain this for industrial use. So what is council's wishes on that? Councillor Ryan, Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we remove the growth area designation for the Laranjo property and not have any designation on it.
Okay, so that is different than the recommendation which was retained for industrial use. You're saying just to remove our designation on it.
Correct.
And that would be full-on agriculture in the OCP and the zoning. Is there a seconder for that position? Councillor Cronmiller, seconding. Any further discussion on that, please? Councillor Ryan, Councillor Cronmiller.
Thank you. I think that we know that there have been some concerns about this. There have been some attempts to have it removed. I'm not sure whether they've been turned down, but it has very serious access issues from to the roadway, and it's removed from our industrial park and separated from it physically. So I think that having it for industrial use, we've got room up there, and we've been talking recently about other options that we might have in the use of our airport lands for industrial use, and perhaps expanding the industrial properties there. We know that we have very little agricultural land in our community, and I think it's important to preserve what we have. And this is already agricultural. It's just that we had hoped that it might be something else. And in terms of our visitor center, and that is being near the beginning of our the entrance to our community, I'm not sure that we want to have that for the use of industry, whatever kind. I think it might be much more pleasant to see crops growing there, or grapes, or whatever someone might choose to put on it. So that's the rationale that I have for removing any designation at all.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cronmiller, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question of Mr. Cunningham. Excuse me. If this goes to agricultural and we don't put industrial on it under our OCP, that still doesn't prohibit the owner of the property or purchaser of the property from coming forward and suggesting to us that we'd like to put this into something industrial, and we could and then proceeding with the applications, etc. for that.
No, it does not foreclose that option, but it does send a signal from council, I believe, they were to go along with deleting it, that they would prefer it to be used for agricultural purposes. And in such situations, when property owners, developers see that kind of message, then instead of the property sitting between possibility of agricultural use, just vacancy that is right now, sometimes they say, well, maybe agriculture is the best use for the property I have.
Thank you.
Councillor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like some clarification from the mover about the other items that are on the list as well. I'm wondering why we broke this one out in particular and how we're going to deal with the other items that are on the list.
I don't know what was in the mayor's mind, but I think he sensed that there might not be any serious disagreement about the others. Personally, I feel I can agree with all the others, but I did have some reservations about this one.
Thank you. Well, I was just looking at this one. The item 2, the Larangel property, was against the staff recommendations, and I thought we would make the resolution be with the recommended resolution staff. So the only one that stood out from that resolution going ahead was this item, because the recommended was retaining for industrial use. So that's when Councillor Ryan and Councillor Cronmiller made and seconded their motion for a different approach to it. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I did want to speak against the motion for reasons, but I don't want it to affect the other items that are on there. Are you wishing for us to accept all of them by resolution individually, or? No? Well, thank you for clarifying that. I'd like to speak against this motion. I think this is a piece of property that has not been farmed for approximately 10 years now. It's kind of positioned in our community to perhaps handle some light industrial use. I know one of the overwhelming things against any kind of commercial or industrial development on this property has always been, how do you get into it and out of it without being affected profoundly by their highways department. But I think that there is an option that through some marriage with the Husky site there, that perhaps a road could be accessed onto Highway 97 that would suit the needs of this particular property. And, you know, we are kind of running out of industrial use land, and I would feel kind of comfortable if we were to support something in that area, and I think this would be a step in that direction by doing this.
Thank you, Councillor Rhodes, and I guess I'll wade in here. I also would speak against the motion because I still see it as a down zoning of a piece of property. It's not, the zoning hasn't changed, but the down designating of the property, because it's designated for some growth, for some C2, and now it would be designated as agricultural. I think that's a big issue for the people that own the property. So I would be voting against this because I don't want to see the land down designated, if that's at all accurate, but that's how we're seeing it. So, Councillor Cronmiller, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too will speak against the motion. I believe that with changing it to agriculture, it does restrict, and based on what Mr. Cunningham had to say, I believe there should be an opportunity there to leave it as industrial. It's close to the town boundaries. It's in to our town area. It's been a piece of property under contentious issues for many, many years, and I think it should have the opportunity to have some change made to it if possible. If not, then the agriculture will continue. But and also I understand that industrial has different accesses to highway than commercial, so it may provide some easier opportunities if light industrial were to purchase the property or develop on the property. So I'm speaking against the motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the downzoning argument is one that you could apply to all the parcels that are being deleted as growth areas. Some of them have been the subject of exclusion applications, and some haven't. But this one perhaps. I'm not sure whether it has been tried. I think there's a pending one that probably is now not going to be withdrawn if it hasn't already. But I think that argument you could apply to the Wish property even. You're downzoning it, so I'm not sure how relevant that is.
And what you're saying is 100% accurate, and you supported that agricultural land position eloquently, and I also like that, but I just don't like the human rights, the owner rights on this property being downgraded. That's the one that sort of sticks with me. I can support your agricultural land reserve all day long, Councillor Ryan, but this comes into that owner rights situation. Anything further? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. So with that motion defeated, could we now go with the recommended resolution, which would be items 1, 2, and 3? Do them as a one-item recommendation, which would be item 1 to direct the staff, and it has I and II, and item 2, confirm, and number 3, to set the process for going ahead. Councillor Cronmiller.
So move.
Councillor Rose, seconding. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Chadsey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is for first reading, and we're on to public hearing. Are we going to be identifying each one individually at the public hearing, or will second and third and ultimate adoption, is it an all or nothing?
Depending on your wishes and in terms of the table, which ones are retained, which ones are deleted, those areas would be specifically identified on a map as to the amendments that you're supposed to make. So if it's going to be deleted, it would be shown as a proposed deleted.
Okay, so again, it would be similar to the process we're doing now. If we were unanimous with it, we'd move it ahead. If not, we would do it one at a time if we were getting stuck.
That's right. What I'm asking for right now is for you to confirm which growth areas you want in and out so that we can prepare OCP amendments. So the OCP amendments would come to a future council meeting for first reading, and at that time you may change your mind or not, but it's at that point that it would be getting into the public process, and that people would be given adequate opportunity for seeing what changes might affect their properties. We would, I'd go further than that and say, because of the importance of it, when I say the changes shown in a map, I think the map should occur in the new.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Any other questions of council? Councillor Chadsey?
I'm just curious about one more. So this is going as recommended and as it's in the report here. So, for example, when we get to the Loranjo property, because of the motion we've made here today, is it automatically excluded, or can in effect Councillor Ryan make the same motion?
Oh, I believe that particular motion was deleted to exclude it, but there seemed to be support for the idea that instead of retaining it for commercial purposes, it's identified for an CP, that it should be in fact reserved for industrial purposes. That would be, but it would still be retained as an R binging area.
Councillor Chadsey,
yeah, close enough.
Okay, and again, this is not zoning. This is OCP. This is way out there before zoning. So this is looking down the road. The zoning on the land is agricultural, and it's still staying in There's nothing, it's not coming out of the land reserve or anything else. It's an OCP. And we're just cleaning up some of those issues as we go into this regional growth strategy. It's fairly complex, but it's the process that we have to live with. So that has been. Now, Councillor Chadsey, you were satisfied? Okay. Thank you. And we voted?
No, not yet.
All in favor of this going ahead as the staff recommendations 1, 2. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. The next item of business is business 7, which is the implementation of a sustainability planning project.
Just to finish the last item, we were looking for a motion relative to set up a public information meeting and a public hearing.
I did that with items 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. So that's so the
we moved the recommendations 1, 2, and 3. Staff brings forward the proposed OCP amendment, tentatively scheduled for October 18th. Set dates for public information meeting and public hearing.
We didn't set the dates.
We didn't set the dates.
Oh, okay.
You want
them
dates.
set by motion? Okay,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham.
We're not looking for those dates yet. We're just asking for council commitment that after the proposed OCP amendments came to first reading, which could be on October 18th, then they would set the dates for
the public hearing.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay, no, that's fine. This is a little bit of a tough one, and it's hard to get a good grasp and get a handle on it, but I think we've got it. We're all satisfied?
We're happy.
Okay, great. Under business 7, the implementation of sustainability planning project, report from the CAO, Mr. Romanko, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The discussions of having or developing a sustainability plan or an overall community strategic plan were done in the last budget period, and at that time I had made a presentation to council that, from my best estimate, that a project for a community the size of Osoyoos would be about $150,000, with 50% of that funding coming from FCM green funds. At that time, council supported the concept of having a broader strategic plan, and however, the dollar figure was very scary. So, although we still have it in our 5-year plan, there was no commitment for funding from this year's budget. Interestingly enough, we've now been introduced to an exciting opportunity. Being a resort municipality, we've been given the opportunity to enter into an agreement with the Whistler Sustainability Center to develop an overall community sustainability plan in a kind of a fast-tracking method. This opportunity is being made available to 5 resort municipality communities, and part of the process will be that 50% of the funding will come from the FCM green funding. The Whistler Sustainability Center has had discussions with them, and they're just looking for the 5 projects. So, with council's approval, we could get into developing a community sustainability plan for Osoyoos for $50,000, $25,000 of that coming from funding from the municipal green funds. I'd just like to quickly touch on some areas which I would see as being the kind of the merits of having a community sustainability plan, and looking for council's support in this particular area. The production of a sustainability plan would enable us to take a look at the kind of the broader economic, social, and environmental and cultural elements of the community from a broader perspective. These items are often planned for in isolation, and they impact each other. So The development of a plan of this area will allow us to tie all those elements together and develop the plan. Again, the plan is meant for a community plan and not a municipal plan. So the opportunity for engaging the public in setting the direction for the community. The availability of a sustainability plan will assist in updating the official community plan. The access to the resources of the Whistler Sustainability Center will certainly be key. These are proven professionals who have done this type of plan for other communities, and Whistler is one of the leaders in sustainability planning, certainly in Canada. The access to the funding will certainly cut down the costs for the community, and I think one of the goals here is this, in fact, will be a kind of a short-term project, 6 months of engaging the community, going through our documents. The town now has many plans. We've just passed another one, the water conservation plan. It's a matter of tying all these documents together in such a manner that will assist us in setting the general direction for the future. Certainly, there is the potential for the community to go on the national stage relative to this particular project with the joint efforts of the Federation of Community Municipalities and the Whistler Sustainability Center. And having a plan like this will also assist our community in future grant applications for in helping us with our green funding capital projects. So, as you can see, there are many positives to this particular plan. It is intention for the community development manager to take a leadership role in implementing this project in the community. The Whistler Sustainability Center has provided council with a sample resolution relative to the funding and the development of sustainability plan, and the administration is recommending that council pass this resolution. And if that happens, it's a good potential that the planning process will actually start within about 6 weeks, and we potentially will have a plan before this next summer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that we, council, inform the Whistler Center that Osoyoos wishes to enter into the project. I think it says doesn't want to, but I think we do want to.
Yes, my apologies.
Very much so. After that introduction, I couldn't have possibly read the words there.
Councilor Cromwell, seconding. Discussion, please. Councilor Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a most exciting thing, and I think Mr. Romenko has outlined numerous reasons for it. The fact that we can get a community plan, that we get the expertise of that center in Whistler behind us, we get some funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I think this is just wonderful, and I keep seeing this little what do you call it, the little egg timer, with the sand passing through it, telling us that we are getting near the end of our time to really show what we're going to do about climate change here in our community. We signed that charter, and the time is running out to have our plan. So this will certainly expedite it, and I think I'm looking forward to it very much.
Thank you. Councilor Cronmiller.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I agree. It's certainly something that I think that we can benefit from, and the costing that we get, the grants that we get from FCM and the Green Fund to certainly make this a worthwhile project and really good value for our dollars. So it's and when we talk about the greening of our community, etc., that these will be real benefits to us, and certainly picking on the expertise of Whistler has provided for us also a benefit. So I look forward to the plan.
Councilor Rhodes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Having been to Whistler a couple of times, the just driving around in that community, they're a world-class leader in environmental solutions of all kinds. They have the most incredible composting program I've ever seen in my life, and no garbage pickup of any kind. They have no expenses, absolutely nothing in that area. Your garbage is your own problem. You get to deal with it. So I'm very supportive of this motion.
Councillor Chadsey?
Thank you. I think it's a great plan. I think whether we get it now or we get it later, it's something that we will have to have. And I just want to say that it's our new community development manager, Mr. Newman, who will be taking this on. And I have a feeling that it's going to be kind of exciting for him. I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, I think it'll look good on the town of Osoyoos. I just hope that there's some good grants that come about as a result of this. We're certainly at the front of the pack in British Columbia. It's just happening with a few of the resort municipalities. There was a lot of takers. I believe there was 5 slots, and they were oversubscribed a couple of times over. And hopefully, I don't know that. Do we have a slot secured if we vote yes?
Yes. We've got a spot secured.
Okay. So if we vote yes today, we do have a slot. But there was a lot of other communities that were trying to get in. So I think we're sort of fortunate to be at the front edge of this, and I hope it bears fruit. So. Any further discussion? Councillor Ryan.
Just a question, Mr. Mayor. Is it important or necessary that we do pass the resolution that they have given us as a model?
I don't know that we need the exact resolution. I think the resolution wishing to enter into an agreement to have the Whistler Centre provide us a sustainability plan under the fast track model would be sufficient.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you. Okay, that brings us down to reports. There's some cash requirements here. I will go slow. I'm looking for a motion to approve the general fund cash requirements in the amount of $430,976.53. Councillor Cronmiller, Councillor Ryan, all in favor, opposed, carried. Looking to approve the Sun Bowl fund cash requirements in the amount of $12,237.89. Councillor Chadsey, Councillor Rhodes, all in favor, opposed, carried. And net payroll accounts of $74,473.96 for the period of August 7th to August the 20th, received for information. Councillor Rhodes, Councillor Chadsey, all in favor, opposed, carried. Under reports K2, the June income statements, we have a report from Mr. Zackel, our Chief Financial Officer. Mr. Zackel, please. Another bonus of having afternoon meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and Council, basically the highlights to the June income statement. Just want to bring to light a number of things. We had our business licenses, which we've now collected more revenues in business licenses than we have over the past 6 years. We're projected right now of a $3,300 budget surplus on that. Development and building services fees, we're showing a deficit due to the lack of construction in the town right now. We're hoping that at some point in the near future we're going to see a bit of a turnaround for our community. Likewise with our landfill tipping and septage fees, with the downturn in the development, we're seeing less materials being hauled to our sanitary landfill, and thus our revenue flows for the landfill are low as well. Keeping with our economy and keeping with interest rates, fortunately, our return on investment on our interest income is another one of the key factors as far as being below what we had budgeted for this period of time. Some of the real good news stories that we've got for our community was we sold the 5 out of the 7 lots at the Osoyoos Airport. So temporarily, those funds are keeping us in financial stability. The remaining part of the revenues and expenditures are doing well. With all of our directors, we've informed our directors to try to keep expenditures as tight as possible so that we don't have unneeded expenditures. And likewise with all of our capital projects, we're ensuring that they are coming in under budget rather than over budget. That's basically financials for.
Thank you, Mr. Zackel. Is there any questions from council on the financial reports? Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was noticing in the Sun Bowl Arena reports that our hockey revenues seem to be down a bit. Well, I guess they aren't so much, are they? They're sort of half. But the RDOS proceeds, is that what is that exactly?
Okay, the RDOS proceeds are basically the tax requisition between the Town of Osoyoos and rural area A. That tax requisition, we receive those revenues in August. So in our August income statement, it'll show those sources of revenue. Likewise, because we operate off of a calendar year, January and February are basically the active parts of our Sun Bowl Arena, where the March is now the downturn, where minor hockey, figure skating are all finishing up. Now we're going to see basically, as we carry on August and therefore right through to December, those sources of revenue should be starting to stream in.
Thank you.
So while it's was not the kind of news we like to receive, the financial health of the community is solid, and we will be doing a different budget approach, I'm sure, next year.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Zackel. Next item of business would be the building report for the month of August. See, there was one new house built for roughly the permit was for $246,000. Total for the month $407,000. Total to date $2,007,000. Total to date for 2009 $3,007,000. So we're down about $1 million in construction from 2009, which was really not a stellar year for this town. So yeah, our income from all that has definitely decreased. Motion to receive that report, please. Councillor Rhodes, Chadsey, all in favor. Receive. The next item would be a committee report. Motion to accept the minutes from the August 12th Waterfront Steering Committee meeting. Councillor Cronmiller, please. So moved. Councillor Ryan, any discussion, Councillor Cronmiller? As they are, all in favor. Opposed? That has been accepted. At this point, we are going to go back to bylaws, because the last item would be councillor reports. So we will go back and deal with our bylaws. And so the first one would be bylaw H1, the 45th Street Road Closure and Disposition Amendment bylaw 1260.01 for first, second, and third readings.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Again, unfortunately, the road closure and disposition bylaw for 45th Street is having to be brought back to council for an amendment. And I apologize, it's unfortunate. The timing of this, or the what had happened is when we were filing the new plans with line titles, they discovered that a subdivision in 1955 in the rural side showed a plan that had a 53-foot wide road right-of-way. However, when that subdivision plan took place, they didn't designate that additional 13 feet as road. So thus, when we took this to land titles to do all of the filing, they rejected the plan and said the road is only 40 feet wide. So that therefore, we're basically bringing this road closure and disposition amendment bylaw back forward to council for tonight for first 3 readings, and basically start that process again. Once we've got first 3 readings, we'd advertise in the Osoyoos Times. We'd give the public the opportunity to speak before council adopts the bylaw, and we also have to send the amendment bylaw off to the highways for their approval.
Wow. So what happens with, this would affect the Osoyoos Indian Band, is that right?
That's correct. There will be a 45th road exchange amending agreement coming forward to council at the point in time when council, or if council's ready to adopt this bylaw. And that amending agreement will basically change the square footage of the road being closed. So the road that was being closed before, or what we thought the road was going to be, was roughly 1,570 square meters. It's now 1,100 and, whoops, pardon me. I think it's 1,180 if I'm not mistaken. So just to keep everything dotted and crossed, we need to bring that back before council. The Osoyoos Indian Band has been diligent in working with us, and likewise, part of their agreement was to pay for the realigned portion of the road. They've given the town the deposit for that already, and we're just basically waiting to tender that project.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Councillor Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to give the first 3 readings to the 45th Street Road closure and disposition bylaw 1260.01.2010.
Councillor Chadsey seconding that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? First 3 readings done. Thanks, Mr. Zackel.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm almost going back and forth here.
I'm glad I'm not the only one suffering from confusion.
And Mr. Davies steps right up to the mic here. So the next one is the bylaws, the recreational service fees, charges, and amendment bylaw number 1180.08 for first, second, and third readings. And this would be the report given by Gerald Davies. Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Before you is our recreation service fees and charges bylaw. Historically, every couple of years, we would have, in the past, we've normally done a 5% increase. This year, we're looking at a number of different things, which includes, obviously, the HST. The numbers that we have had in the past included GST, and currently they include the HST as of July 1st. Before you, I have a couple of items. A 5% increase, a 7% increase, a 10%, and 12% as different options to include or for council's recommendation. I've also added a couple of sections to the bylaw, the definition section, which wasn't there before, a SOCAN fee, which is the Society of Composers, Authors, and Music Publishers of Canada fee, various items like a laptop projector and those kind of items. And also a CPI increase that would actually help us stay up to the cost of living as we progress from year to year, rather than coming back every other year for amendments to our bylaw. The options that I presented is for council to approve the 10% increase of the service fees and charges, and give it the first 3 readings, or for the council to approve another increase and give it the first 3 readings, or for council to not look at it at all or to abandon the actual bylaw.
Councillor Ryan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question before I make a motion here, and that is the meaning of senior. It says 55 in spelled out, and then it has 60 in parentheses. So is it 55 or 60?
It was a typo. It is 60.
It should be 60?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll consider that we'll make this with that change to be done. So I would be happy to move this bylaw, and I guess we want bylaw 1180.08 2010.
For first, second, and third
For
reading?
first, second, and third, yes.
Okay, seconder on that, Councillor Rhodes. Discussion. Coach Hadsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have a question. In dollars or cents, what is the difference between a 10 and a 12%? So 3% to us or 5%?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Okay. The current, if we went 10%, excluding the 7% HST, if we went to 10%, what would the drop-in be now? What is it now? Would it be at 10?
Well, a drop-in fee right now for adults is $3. So a 10% obviously would be $3.30, and we were going to round that to the nearest half dollar or dollar, so probably a $3.50.
Okay, but 7% of that, or
yes,
is HST.
That's correct.
I guess what I'm trying to say is there that big a difference between the 10% that you're recommending and the 12%?
No, it's not at all, especially when we do round it off to the nearest half dollar. Historically, if we omitted the 7%, we would do a 5% increase. With the 10%, we're